If we move now to domestic politics in terms of what's next for Spain, the main problem the government might face is its own survival. By the end of the day, what you see here is a chart with all the political parties represented in parliament. Remember that in order to have a majority in Spain, you need 176 votes for. So, and what you have there with 155, it's the addition of the MPs of PSOE and Podemos, who are part of this government. So to pass any important piece of legislation, they will need a majority. How can they get that majority? They can either reach 176, that it's relatively hard, or they can actually opt for, seek the abstention and no vote of certain parties. But it's a struggle. Actually, tomorrow there's an important vote in Congress because we are in what we call estado de alarma. Translated will be a state of alarm. So that gives special powers to the government to limit movement of people, and that's how we, by the end of the day, decided on the confinement. And actually, the government might lose that vote. It's possible. However, they are negotiating right now with Ciudadanos and PNV in particular, because they already have Teruel Existe, they already have Compromís, and they already have a mass-based vote. So that will give them just a majority. However, it's tricky because by the end of the day, the government is putting this is either other parties support us or it's going to be chaos. Because actually, if they do not support it, the confinement will be over in Spain. People will be allowed to go out, and it will be chaos. I mean, you can imagine absolute chaos. However, and this is not only about COVID-19 crisis and the vote that is going to happen tomorrow. We have to be reminded the government has to pass a budget. The parliament, has to vote on the budget proposed by the government every year. And they do need the support, and they do need the maths. And actually, this is quite an interesting game, what supports they can get or not. But the ability to pass a budget normally means that a government is going to call for snap elections, because without a budget, they are not able to implement their own policies, because that would mean actually that the budget from the previous year is going to be prorrogado, so it's going to be extended to the following one. So actually, that means governing with the budget of the previous government. If that makes any sense. This sounded like a tongue twister, but I hope you got the concept here. So yeah, it's a weak government. They don't have an absolute majority in parliament. They depend on too many parties. And even though the elections are meant to happen once again in 2023, early 2024, most likely late 2023, it's also quite likely that we're going to have snap elections at some point during the term. It will also depend on what the polls are saying, what the polls are suggesting for PSOE and Podemos, who are the two parties that are in government. What is the other problem? Polarization. I mean, you can not imagine. I mean, I'm sure that the US is similar at the moment, but COVID-19 crisis has been nothing but more polarization. People protesting, political parties opposing the government not engaging on dialogue with the other forces, even though they don't have a majority in parliament. It's been incredibly polarized, a blame game all over the place. And actually this has resulted, and it had resulted already, and this is increasing, on people being more and more dissatisfied with politicians, being actually considering politicians one of their main problems. Actually, right now, politicians are considered the second biggest problem for Spanish people. And this is something that is new in our history, that half of the population consider politicians to be a problem. So you can imagine what this is. And actually, I don't know whether when this crisis is over, the situation will eventually settle, but right now it is as it is. And last but not least, let me tell you a little bit about Catalonia. Actually, Catalonia has been, the crisis, the whole situation in Catalonia has been quieted down a little bit by these much bigger, much more important crisis that we have in terms of health crisis. But there's been room also for the pro-independence movement to make allegations for their independence. As during COVID-19, the government, using this state of alarm that I told you before, has actually gathered all the power, decentralized the decision-making process in fields that traditionally have been part of the competences of the comunidades autónomas, as for example, health, or also certain security forces. So that actually gives the government of Catalonia very little room for action in, well, yeah, to promote the independence, so to say. However, there have been possibilities. Spain, well, the central government is being allocating mask and resources to comunidades autónomas. And in one of these allocations, they gave Catalonia 1,714,000 masks. And how on earth will this relate to the pro-independence movement? Actually, it has to do with a date that is 1714. That it was a year when Spain regained control of Catalonia and Barcelona from the French in a war, and the government of Catalonia considered this to be an offense and a problem. Actually, yeah, that they were pretty much asking for problem and for trouble there. So actually, they do find ways to politicize and to give this cleavage, the Catalonia independence touch to even the COVID crisis. And also, very much more important, this was just an anecdote, also much more important, you know that what I told you before, that the government is a weak government that does not have a majority in parliament. And one of the parties that voted for this government was Esquerra Republicana de Catalunya, a pro-independence party that is also left-wing as a government that we have right now in Spain. And is whether to be seen what's going to be the game between the government and Esquerra. Actually, tomorrow is going to be the first time that Esquerra is going to vote against the government in these terms so far that we started in January with the regard of the extension of the state of alarm. It's going to be seen how it works. They have to set up a table of negotiation, but that obviously will happen once the COVID-19 crisis is over. But obviously, Catalonia issue is halted kind of right now, but for sure it's going to be back on the agenda as soon as we make it over the crisis and we come out of it. So yeah, as you can see, no peaceful, no quiet times for Spanish politics in the near future. And quite a few issues in the agenda. Obviously, the economic one, the social one because of COVID, also in the international arena playing with it, but also the politics itself became an issue, and obviously Catalonia as well. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's class. I'll see you again next week, because tomorrow, as you know, you have to start watching your classmates' videos. Make sure that you leave your feedback on the videos with your name also in the feedback, so I can know that you are the person commenting on the video and giving feedback so I can grade your participation on the course. So yeah, bye.